right at the middle point of his career, Jesus takes his disciples as far north as he ever does, to the city of Caesarea Philippi, far away from the Judean political center in Jerusalem, governed by the Roman Pontius Pilate, even beyond the Galilean lands ruled by Herod Antipas, the Herod who, together with Pontius Pilate, would later sit in judgment of Jesus at his trials, right up north into non-Jewish territory ruled over by Philip the Tetrarch. And here, far from the inquisitive ears of Jewish rebels and Roman spies, Jesus reveals his true identity to his disciples. Or does he? "Who do you say that I am?" he asks them. And Peter answers, "You are the Messiah, the Christ, or anointed one, the Son of the living God." The gospel writers agree that this conversation was pivotal in Jesus' ministry. For one thing, it confirmed the political nature of Jesus' mission. Until now, you might have mistaken him for a miracle worker or a moral teacher. But the name Messiah was a political term. The Messiah was the long-awaited liberator of the Jewish people, the one who would help them throw off the shackles of their foreign oppressors. It was also pivotal for Jesus himself. From this moment, Jesus sets course for Jerusalem and for his final showdown with the people and rulers who will ultimately reject and crucify him. So it's worth pausing here for a moment and pondering this question. What if Jesus asked us the question? How would we respond? Who do you say that I am? The first thing to note is that it is a deeply personal question. Personal in the sense that it is a question about a person, not about a thing or a principle. Western theology has tended to wrestle with the question, what exactly is Jesus? But the Hebrew mind was far more interested in the relationships, the who is Jesus. So in answer, Peter doesn't just throw out a theological term, Christ or the Messiah. He adds something which roots his answer in relational terms. You, he says, are the Son, a relationship, of the living God. Now, why does this matter? Well, there's a difference between following a set of principles or teachings and following a person. Let's say my fitness instructor, as if I had a fitness instructor, were to tell me to run around my neighborhood to get fit. Well, first let's imagine that he writes it down as an instruction. I read it and interpret it to mean that I should run around in my neighborhood. So I quickly run up and down the road and go back to reading my book. But alternatively, what if the instructor stays with me? As I come to the end of the street, when I'm ready to turn back home, he says, no, come along, look lively. We're going all the way around the perimeter of the neighborhood. You see, following a set of rules leaves me in charge. It gives the power to me. I control how the rules are interpreted. But following a person places the power entirely in their hands. Who do you say that I am? The question is also deeply personal in another sense. Jesus begins by asking what people in general say about him, but that's not what he's really after. He wants to know who his disciples say he is. In other words, it doesn't matter what the world thinks about him. Jesus asks, who do you say that I am? But there's more. Jesus is not asking Peter, he is asking the disciples as a group or as a community. Who do you say that I am is placed in the plural. So the question is, who do we as a community say Jesus is? Leslie Newbegin writes as follows: Jesus did not write a book, but formed a community. This community has at its heart the remembering and rehearsing of his words and deeds and the sacraments given by him, through which it is enabled both to engraft new members into its life and to renew this life again and again through sharing in his risen life through the body broken and the lifeblood poured out. It exists in him and for him. He is the center of its life. Its character is given to it, when it is true to its nature, not by the characters of its individual members, but by his character. Insofar as it is true to its calling, it becomes the place where men and women and children find that the gospel gives them the framework of understanding, the lens through which they are able to understand and cope with the world. Finally, who do you say that I am? It's not simply about what we think or believe about Jesus. What do we as a community say about Jesus? Whoever we happen to think Jesus is, and our Bible study, which starts in 2 weeks, will explore this question a little bit further, whether we think he is Lord or Savior or Messiah or whatever. How do we say that about him to the world? Well, there are 3 ways I can think of that a community can say what they believe collectively. Leaders can speak on behalf of the community. For example, Peter speaks for the disciples. Secondly, they can publish declarations of their belief in charters or creeds, like, for example, the Declaration of Arbroath or the Apostles' Creed. But by far the most persuasive statement about a community's beliefs is the witness of their shared life. How do they treat one another? How do they treat others? How do they organize themselves? And perhaps above all, how do they treat the least powerful members of their community? So this week, I'm left wondering, in the way that we treat each other, in the way that we treat our neighbors, in the way that we organize ourselves, and above all, in the way that we treat the least powerful among us, who do we say Jesus is?